And from that time on, if anyone stares straight into a mirror, concentrates and says, Mary Worth, come to me, she will appear. She will come as a distant shadowy figure at first, that gets more distinct as she comes closer. If you continue to watch and look upon her completely, she will shatter the mirror, trying to mar your face as hers was. Chances are you've heard of some variations of the popular folklore Bloody Mary, the supernatural play involving conjuring the undead in front of a bathroom mirror in the middle of the night is well known amongst young adults, and for some is the reason why they still avoid looking into mirrors at night, even years later. Centuries of superstitions passed down through generations, combined with the strong association with the supernatural portrayed in horror films, play the part of giving mirrors a bad reputation. But perhaps the more important factors have to do with the human brain and our psychology. If you often find yourself going great lengths to avoid encounters with mirrors, or anything reflective for that matter, you might be one of the many with spectrophobia, the fear of mirrors. It is nothing new. Superstitions about mirrors date back hundreds of years. The reflective nature of mirror is believed to have given rise to the belief that a mirror reflects a person's soul. In ancient Rome, a broken mirror was considered a bad omen and was believed to bring the one responsible 7 years of bad luck. Some cultures believe that if a mirror in a house falls on its own and breaks, someone is about to die. The origin of these superstitions can usually be traced back to the fear of the unknown. We fear what we do not understand, and we often attribute the supernatural to try to explain things. Of course, anyone who went to school nowadays knows how a mirror works. But keep in mind that people in the past did not have access to the scientific knowledge we do today. But science aside, mirrors by themselves are inherently bizarre. They reflect the real world, but not quite perfect. The color might be a little bit off, the edges might be distorted, and you never know what might be lurking just beyond the frame. You can see how this could be a real creepy experience for people in the past. It's this almost perfect but not quite so nature of reflections that gave mirrors a mysterious otherworldliness and gave rise to many ancient superstitions and beliefs. It is the sense of both familiarity and novelty, the fight between our curiosity and the fear of the unknown. You can see this concept reflected in many pieces of literature and folklore. A good example is Alice Through the Looking Glass. Alice is curious about what's on the other side of a mirror's reflection until she finds a mirror which acts as a portal to an alternate universe. The folklore Bloody Mary that was mentioned at the beginning of this video is another good example. In case you've never heard of it, there are many variations, but the basic idea is that if you face a mirror in a dark room and chant her name, a spirit known as Bloody Mary would appear. In this case, the mirror acts as a gateway separating our world and that of spirits. Chances are you know someone who claims to have had a supernatural experience with mirrors and they sounded so certain of the experience. It is very possible that their perception of the experience was indeed very real. In a 2010 study by psychologist Giovanni Caputo of the University of Urbino, each subject was put in a dimly lit room in front of a large mirror and was asked to gaze at their reflected face within the mirror. The responses differed widely across participants, but within minutes, subjects reported seeing huge deformations of one's own face, parent's face with traits changed, an unknown person, an archetypal face, an animal face, and monstrous beings. If you've played Bloody Mary before, you might recall experiencing something similar. This strange face illusion effect is believed to be caused by the brain. In simple terms, the brain can only process so much information at a time. In order to be more efficient, the brain filters out details that it deems unimportant. It does this all the time. That's why you don't usually see your nose unless you actively try to look for it. Your brain blocks it out to make life easier for you, and most of the time, it does the job well enough that you never notice. However, when it comes to something that you know very well, like your own face, well enough is no longer enough. Staring at your own reflection for an extended period of time, and the brain starts to filter out unimportant details. In this case, they happen to be your facial features. Suddenly, the approximated face your brain generated on the spot looks nothing like you, or worse, it might not even look like a human face. You failing to recognize your own reflection could trigger another mechanism in the brain in which it attempts to make whatever you're seeing make sense. We don't do well with things we don't recognize or understand. In this case, the brain attempts to fix that for you by mixing in facial features from your memory, features that you'd recognize, whether that be your parent's face or that scary monster you saw on TV the other night. The dimly lit room amplifies the effect, as it's difficult to recognize details in the dark, so your brain has a lot more guesswork and approximation to do. To conclude, the otherworldly nature of reflections and mirrors gave rise to superstitions and folklores that established mirrors' association with the supernatural. Literature and horror films further reinforce the idea while the human brain plays tricks on our perception, which even further makes those folklores and stories more convincing. It's the combination of those factors that makes mirrors so creepy, but there are probably many other minor components. If you ever played Whispers or Telephone, you know how unreliable word of mouth is. Errors accumulate with each retelling, whether intentional or not. A slightly spooky personal experience could easily be distorted into a traumatizing urban legend. The next time you have a shower, why not try out the experiment I talked about in the video? Just dim the light and stare straight into the mirror and see for yourself if you're not convinced.